I refuse to believe that there's a lot of practitioners out there that are purposefully making people not get better for money. You know, I'm sure there's a few out there that do it, right? But for the most part, the vast majority wouldn't.
I don't think they're all doing it.
No, exactly, right. So
they probably believe that 4 cracks a week is the right.
Well, potentially, right, because the philosophy.
Because that was a method before, right?
Yeah, that was where.
That's why it was seen as a pseudoscience in a way.
Well, it was a pseudoscience, right? Again, people that believe this methodology would it got disproven in the research plenty of times. And basically, the crux of it is it's called the subluxation complex, where essentially it's about the joint, the spinal segment, and you have the nerves and everything going through there. And basically, if you have a postural misalignment, that's going to put pressure on the nerve. The nerve is innervating everything. If you've got pressure on the nerve, the communication between the nerve and the body is going to be diminished, and that's going to cause you issues. So if I can adjust the segment and the piece of the spine that's misaligned, I'm going to fix the issue, right? And that's just not true. It's just not how the body works, right? And usually when there's a positive association of healing, a lot of the times it comes down to natural history, and the adjustments itself they're a very aggressive but very powerful technique which can cause a big analgesic effect, right? And so you can have this diminishment of pain very quickly from it, but you're not fixing anything, right? It's like you're taking Panadol, right? And so it's going to take the edge off. And sometimes you do have situations where there is a joint that's just really locked up and it just needs a bit of a push and everything clears up, but that is rare. Most of the time it's a natural history of things. A lot of things get better on their own. Yeah. And it's just that we are facilitators in helping people get from Shit's Creek now to happy days. Yeah. You know? So it's there's a lot of, I suppose,
nuance behind it.
Yeah, and people misassociate things and miscorrelate things. You know, you can not miscorrelate. They miss the cause, right? And you can never be sure of the cause. You can correlate things 100%, but a lot of the causes on why did this actually happen is very hard to know. Yeah. You know, so, but I forgot where the story was.
Client lower back.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So,
I remember.
No, because that's right. We were talking about the depression and stuff like that. So, not that this patient was depressed, but he was showing he was like in injury. And he was depressive about like the situation and what was going on. And basically, he came to me. It was a referral. Obviously, all disc bulge with nerve pain and all this stuff, and basically came to me. One of the first things he said to me was, "You're my last hope. You need to fix me, or I don't know what I'm going to do with myself for the rest of my life." And I went,
"That's a big
statement, big call, that one."
Yeah, but the thing is I can understand it because he's been dealing with this for 6+ months. Like everything he's done hasn't worked, and a lot of the times what he has done
now.
Yeah, and so, but what he's done previously, you're like, was it appropriate for him in terms of like, was it actually addressing what was going on, or was it just addressing symptoms? Because usually that's what it comes down to. It's like the things that are prescribed and what they're doing and the hands-on, the rehab, everything. It's just addressing it symptomatically, which you're never going to then fix things long-term in that situation. But in his situation, the low back was not nerve or anything like that. It was coming from his hips, basically. He had all this stuff going on and previously, which then led to his hips just being chronically tight. Like, people talk about being stuck in an anterior pelvic tilt, right? So if anyone doesn't know, like that's your pelvis sort of like rocked forward. Look up Simone Biles. She's locked into an anterior tilt because she's a gymnast and explosively powerful, right? Yeah, it doesn't make sense. But anyways,
there's anatomy.
But basically, this guy was locked into a posterior tilt. He could not get out of a posterior tilt. And I mean, you guys that know, you ever try and go into any sort of hip hinge patterning with like RDL, deadlifting, bending over
with a posterior tilt, then you're cooked.
Yeah, exactly. Because then you're not allowing your hips to get involved. All you're doing is bending the hell out of your back and asking your back to do everything. So, and then in that situation, the back can't calm down. So
to describe that to someone, that's sort of like popping your butt out, right?
Yeah.
Sticking your bum. No,
like a nice so posterior tilt is where you tuck your bum under, so your tailbone comes underneath your spine. Think of it that way.
Other way around.
Yeah.
Anterior pelvic tilt is the other one.
Yeah,
your butt's actually coming out.
Yeah, like the bony bits at the front kind of pop towards and your back gets arched.
Yes.
So that's where a lot of people blame
Like an
that for
Instagram
issue.
model when they
Like Instagram girls.
Bang on.
There
bang
we
on,
go.
Yeah. So, but this guy was locked into a posterior tilt. So for him,
The
it just
opposite.
it just didn't allow him. And to be fair, I'll be honest, most people are actually stuck in a posterior tilt. The people that aren't,
Most people.
majority of people that I've seen anyway have been more of a posterior tilt. The ones that are locked into an anterior tilt are your sportsmen that are doing explosive
More
sports.
athletics.
Yeah. So like for instance, I'm more of an anterior tilt dominant a person because I'm play football. It's very explosive, change of direction, stuff like that. I mean, you look at sprinters, same thing. Gymnasts, same thing. Dancers, same thing. But yeah, so this guy was locked into a tilt backwards and basically just didn't allow him to open up his glutes because you need to be able to flex your hip to lengthen the glutes out. If you can't lengthen a muscle, it's not going to load, right?
Yeah.
I always use the analogy like imagine you're trying to bicep curl, but you can only bend or extend your elbow to here. You don't expect the bicep to load
to do a lot of work
grow.
in a way.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to be able to because you're just not getting into a position that puts the muscle in an ideal spot to produce workload and produce force, right? So that was basically his situation. And long story short, it was on the third session, the first two sessions I've been focusing on his low back, trying to get the symptoms down. They went away for a day, then kept coming back. And the third session, I went, I got to switch this up. And I basically took a deeper dive and I probably went a lot more focus on the glutes and the hamstring. And because the way I look at it is if somebody comes in, they go, my low back hurts, I need to get this sorted. I just need the pain gone. Yep. One of the things I always try and do is, okay, the low back's the pain site, whether it's the issue or not is another question, but it's the site of pain. So I need to work on that at least a little bit to bring the pain down. So then this person feels like, okay, we're getting somewhere, and then they're willing to go work on the root cause. You know what I mean?
And the root cause would probably be the hips or the back.
For him, it was the hip and the hamstring, I believe, as well, wasn't really doing too well. But basically, the hips were the main thing. Just him being able to tilt his pelvis in and out of a forward and backwards tilt.
Because that's a coaching cue as well. Teaching someone how to anterior pelvic tilt. And
So I don't know if you guys have heard this cue. The best cue I heard, which was from a guy called David Gray, which pretty much everyone in the allied health field would know his name, right?
He's mad, yeah.
Yeah. He basically cued a hip hinge, and he cued this lady that had no awareness at all. Like her hinge was awful. It was just basically the same as my patient, where it's just all back. Yeah. He cued it. He goes, I want you to move your sit bones. I want you to lift them or push them back and up. Sit bones back and up. And that's all he said. And then she went from like bending her back.
Oh, that's so smart.
Yeah. And I've picked that up about it. I only heard him say that a couple of weeks before this patient came in. And when I was trying to get him to hinge, it was the same thing. And I cued that. And straight away he started getting into his glutes. And straight away his hinging and deadlifting pattern went from my back's tensioned and sore to, oh shit, my back's calm. It's just because now the for him,
he's doing the right form.
His glutes were taking up the load, and so that means the low back only had to do as much as it was required to do, no more, no less. So
there we go.
Yeah, that and it's a big thing where, as I said earlier in this pod, if something down the chain or even up the chain isn't doing its job, something else will pick up the slack. This guy was his low back, so we had no nerve pain, no disc bulge, right, that was causing him pain in that moment. Maybe
no slip discs.
No, definitely not. But maybe he had that. Maybe he had a debulging disc at the start, like 6-8 months ago. I don't know what happened.
Well, according to another practitioner, he probably did have a slip disc.
Yeah, and I said to him, I go, but see, for him, he's never had any back pain before this or anything like that. So for him, he might have genuinely bulged his disc out, had nerve pain,
but unrelated to the initial injury.
No, that potentially was the initial injury, right?
Okay.
And that has started this cascade of chronic low back pain and potentially that bulging disc and nerve pains resolved. But then while that was resolving, the way his body's chosen to move has then shifted because it adapts around the pain. And his body's decided, okay, we can't move our glutes. I'm going to move my low back, right?
Yes. Okay.
And so we'll use our low back for everything. And when that happens, then the disc bulge goes away, nerve pain goes away, the movement strategy hangs around. All of a sudden, then he's still got low back pain. And so then it's like you think, oh, it's still the disc bulge. In his situation, I don't think it was. It was just that this movement strategy over time was then causing him pain because it was causing him to overload his low back. So
snowball effect.
Yeah, exactly. And then once we got his hips moving, it basically things started to stick. Then he started getting pain staying away for longer and longer and longer. And each session he came in, he was starting to get happier and happier. And I remember this actually, Liv was on reception this day. And after the third session, all I did was work on release his glutes and then just work on hinging with him. Like that was it. And at reception, he literally said to Liv, he goes, if I don't see results quickly, I give up. And I was just like, yeah, no pressure. I was like, shit. I was like,
Let's hope this works.
Yeah, I was like, I hope he feels good after
Come on,
today's
David
session.
Gray, help me out here.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, for him, it was good. He completely solved his issues and stuff like that. But yeah,
there we go.
But basically,
Well, after that session, or is it?
No. So it was just we had
That was
made
like
good
the
strides
initial-
after that one. That was the turning point where I went, okay, I can't focus on the
Let's
symptoms
not focus
anymore.
on this. Let's focus on this.
Yeah, I
instead.
got to focus on the root cause because
Yeah.
for him, no matter I focused on the symptoms, calmed down for a day, came back. So unless he was coming back 2 days later, there was no point working on the symptoms and then him coming back 1 week later or even half a week later because it was just he was getting back to almost the same point anyway. So, yeah.
Being a chiropractor, what would be one bit of advice that you would give to someone that's currently injured at the moment watching this podcast?